Hello, thank you for having me back, having invited me back a number of times. My presentation is a half hour. Please warn me if it goes on too long. I'm not going to talk that much. I have about four video examples of pieces I'm going to talk about, so I should think it will be about half, half of those and the half speaking. This is something I've sort of put together if I give presentations. I call it my favorite things, and they're just some of the sources that I have used through the years for inspiration pieces: architecture, Mayan architecture, Indian architecture, old film, designing, drawing on film, the beginning of film. Anyway, you see it, and I kind of like to start with that. The title of today's talk is Book of Samples. I'll tell about that in a minute. I'd like to preface that by a very short discussion of experimental imagery, and that's something I came to because of the online festivals of Bode Electrons. I was invited to make lunch concert, each with 3 pieces in 2021 and last year, a year ago. And I certainly don't have that many current pieces with nice video recordings and such. So I thought, yeah, that's a pretty nice opportunity to look back. And I did have some reasonable audio examples of pieces of performances, but I thought, looking at a black screen, yeah, I'd rather look at something colored images if I was going to be a participant of the festival. So I started. I've never taken a video in my life except with the camera, like we all do. Mobile phone, and that's what I mean. But I have made a lot of what I call glitch photos, and those are like forcing finale, the notation program. Sorry, we're back there. Glitch notes. I used to just sort of dig, turning off the little checkbox in which finale or any other notation program says, no, you got enough, it's a 4/4. I'll send the notes to the next bar, yeah? And I would turn that off, so you get these jumbled notes. If you start putting 128 notes in a bar, you start to get these sort of interesting patterns. And I used to make flyers and what have you with that. So, and here's some score, I think partially quite imaginary. Then, you ditch the bar lines. Okay, so I think this was, in fact, the one image I used in a video program, so you're really only using stills, you can stretch them out, and I'd made a catalog of colorations of this image, yeah? So I put those in the video, of course, the recording of the existing composition from years ago. Here's one. This I actually just layered in Keynote, so you can change the color of the notes and duplicate it and make it bigger and smaller and all that. This one I don't think is very pretty, but it does show another way. So I did that in 2021 for 2 pieces for Bode Electrons lunch concert. The first one was called Chromatoy for toy piano, acoustic grand, and live sampling. And for that one, I very literally layered a bunch of these glitch note images, and all I did to suggest any movement was to use cross dissolve. Now, more basic, you can't get more basic, but you still can get a sort of timeline feeling. And the idea was not to mimic the music, not to illustrate particularly music. Sometimes, if it's maybe very sort of Cajun, sometimes they do happen to come together, yeah. And maybe sometimes I did, make it a little more with the climax and the whatever. But that was not the idea. And the other piece in that first lunch concert I use blur dissolve. So here you see that glitch note thing of the ensemble. And if you put the blur dissolve, it literally stretches out the image, and I adored that. And then I made catalogs, again, of colorations. The whole catalogs of colorations with the same image, and then layering like this, and you know, messed around, enjoying messing around with the colors you could get. And you see this is in, and I used DaVinci Resolve. Way at the bottom is the audio of the actual piece that was being used. Now, and so this was the second one. The first one I said was for toy piano, and this one was originally for acoustic violin, amplified, fixed media, and I decided to make a remix. In my simple idea of what is a remix, I love the idea of it. And so about the music part, I simply I had a reasonable audio of the performance. It was in a museum in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. And I doubled it in Logic. So, I mean, in fact, that was, one track was the audio and the other the fixed media. And I doubled both. So then I had two violin tracks and 2 fixed media. And in the copy of the original, I just, you know, happily added more plugins, and it's very thick and kind of not very good sound quality. But anyway, that's what became the remix. And I have a short fragment to let you hear, get an idea of what that was. So now to the book of samples. In the beginning of Corona, well, 2020 was we all experienced. At a certain point, one could fly the coop, and I was able to go to France for a visit, and I came across a museum called the La Musée de la Chemiserie, so the machine of the museum of the industry of making men's shirts. Yeah, and what was a wonderful museum in a small village. And in that museum, I saw a swatch book. So I don't know if you know all what a swatch book is. So literally from a fabric house, giving small examples of all of their fabrics, of the designs and of the various colorations of same, for prospective buyers, whether that would be that you want to reupholster your house, have a dress made, da-da-da. We still have them, I love them. But I found then this idea sort of sparked my interest, and I looked on archive.org, and I found a museum in Massachusetts called the Clark Art Institution, and they owned a swatch book. They called it the Book of Samples. And I got in touch with the librarian, and very kindly she said, choose, if you'd like to choose 10 pages, I'll send you higher resolution, because I told her that I'd like to make a visual piece with it. So that's the sort of the source of the Book of Samples. And my idea was to make 4 pieces. I've spelled it out. 2 of them are instrumental, number 1 and number 3. And number 1 has fixed media, and number 3 is purely acoustic. Now, both piece 1 and 3, in the course of the years since 2020, when I started this idea, have been performed twice in the Netherlands. And the other completion of the idea, Book of Samples, was to have an audio-visual work, because I liked this experimental imagery I'd started on doing, and I thought, hey, I get these images from this museum of this Book of Samples, and I'm going to do the same technique, more or less, and see how that is. And that's for the visual part, but now I also have audio. I had a quite nice studio recording of the first piece, 0 in, 0 out, for clarinet, bass, clarinet and piano. And I used that as a basis for what I call a kinetic collage. Yeah, so put it in, yeah, made a collage of the samples of the book, and also cut and paste things I decided to use very intuitively, and did the same thing up until 3 days ago, just finished it, and that is the comment on 3D weaves, the acoustic piece. So, so instrumental, number 1, 2, audio-visual, commentary thereof, 3, acoustic, and 4, which tonight will be presented for the first time. Okay. Here you see that Book of Samples, one page. And I found that for 1825, those are pretty modern looking to me. Here's another one. They're all numbered. Of course, now horizontal. In the end, I cut off the edges, decided which way I was going to use it in the imagery, and often vertical seemed to work well. I started to make a brochure, which I never have really gotten around to finish, talking about. And this is another thing, why is it so fascinating to me, the swatch book, that these little examples of material suggest a huge field of a piece of cloth. It could be 3 meters wide, yeah? And so you're just seeing that little thing, and that will be enough to make you want to order it. But also, in my fantasy, it was like a window into a, oops, sorry about that, very sorry, into a big world. And so that idea, and then coming back from the big to the small. Here's just, again, I was using them all over the place. This was a flyer for the first concerts of this duo Ebeno. And okay, now two portions of the piece for duo Ebeno. The first portion is the end of part 1, and the second portion, they're both in one file. The beginning of the second movement, 0 out. What I was very interested in, and always am interested in, is sort of designing new playing techniques, playing implements also, particularly playing implements. So in the first one you will see, and I've done this in a lot of pieces, use big thick blocks of hammer felt, putting them on the strings, yeah? So, I mean, it's, you can, as we heard with Mr. Peltzel, sorry, about the gong sounds, here you can make the harmony, pressing nodes on the strings of a grand piano, and often, yeah, the more bassy, the deeper the string, the better overtones you can get. And the other portion shows another thing I did. It's probably not so kind to the piano, but I experimented with using all kinds of materials to play what I call stiffed glisses. On the end of a grand piano, you have the very little stiffs that the strings are attached to, and stretched, of course, on top of the sounding board. And at the beginning of that second piece, you will see both players play different parts of where the strings are attached to the Panzerrahmen, the metal frame above the sounding board. Okay. 0 in, 0 out. Now I'm going to go to the sort of partner, the paired second piece, which is what I call the kinetic collage. Here you see my flower boat electrons. And number 3, Book of Samples, Mergers, Transitions. This is what I call that audiovisual work, of which you will also now see 2 little fragments, is in the whole archive, a wonderful archive of boat electrons. And so, again, I cut and paste bits that I like very, very much sound-wise, however, from the first piece, which you just saw, and made a collage, added plugins or not, as it became very intuitive kind of thing, along with a visual component using cutouts and various layerings of images from the Book of Samples. This is the beginning, I think. Oh, wait a minute, did I put it? No. So. Sorry about that. Here is just a still shot of the end of the piece. You will not see. There I made them all into stripes. That's a whole bunch of pages, cropped and stretched. Here's they're all stretched, and here's it's called Vortex. Cool effect, but just a still of that. And then another short fragment. Now, I've come to the third piece, and this is the acoustic composition, which I spoke about in here. Yeah, I first made the piece quite long for my style. It was 7 small movements, and I over a longer period of time, again, COVID, I shortened it. Now it was 5 movements. You will not see, obviously, all of that, but I'm starting with 3D weaves, which is the title of the piece, and there are a number of effects for accordion, which I like very much, the accordion mute. No pitch, it's to get this wonderful breathing in and out, and quite a bit of kind of multiphonic timbres in clarinet and so on. So. love the accordion with no pitch. It's great, great sound. Then one more short example from the 3D Weaves piece, and it's the last movement called Ritmo Meccanico. Now, obviously, I'm not going to show something of the fourth piece, Ondate di Colore, because it will be in the concert this evening. A very bit to tell, this is actually the program note. I was actually in Italy a while back when they had the, and I love the word, Ondata di Calori, the heat wave, the dome, yeah, that was pretty hellish to live through, but I adored that phrase and decided to grab it and change it into color waves. So this is, again, using fragments that seem to me suitable for the audio of the kinetic collage. And in the program that I was saying I used, DaVinci Resolve, I decided to go further. It was also a new version. They had a lot of available effects that were very, very tricky for me as an amateur to use, but I happily used them. One of my favorite was called waviness, and that kind of fits with the color waves and fast noise and all kinds of pretty fabulous effects. But they are tricky to use, and I almost crashed the computer many times. So what I'm going to just show you a few stills, which you will see in the video this evening. So these are like in that, I showed that first example in mergers, transitions, of stretching it out. So it means you crop it, make it into like a ribbon, as it were, and then let loose various of these effects to get different textures, colors, kind of technicolor. And yeah, my little sort of Hans Christian Andersen story, I seem to do this with pieces. So first, it's all deconstructed and wobbly and wild, the images, and then right before the end, one, as you see here, one page sort of breaks loose and comes back into its page form and starts pitching and yawing around the space and is joined by others, yeah, I don't know, is that going home to the book of samples? Anyway, yeah, fun. Any questions or comments of any kind? Thank you.
Christina, thank you first of all so much for being here,
My pleasure.
bearing with us. To the listeners online, I do apologize that we are running a little bit late, but I would like to open the floor for questions, and I have the first question, if I may.
Yes, please.
In your work, through the course of this, the development of your audio, I call it your audiovisual style, i.e., patterns, colorful patterns, and using that as visuals along with music. Is there any relationship between sound color and patterned color at all? Do you compose with that? Do you work with that, with those relationships, or not?
Yes, very much, yeah. And then in particular in this last one, Ondata di Colore, I really kind of dug the ritmo meccanico, that last section of 3D weaves, where it's very minimal-like and sort of merges if you layer it enough. And so I made a very wild, just before the end of the video, that they all react to that, and in many different colors, sort of freak out. So indeed.
Explosive effects.
Yeah, and at the end, I made a sort of chorale of the floating pages of the book as a suitable end, in my opinion. Other ideas, questions? Yes?
I'm really struck by this idea. Sorry, is the room mic louder? Yeah, I'm really struck by that. I mean, it's a swatch book, but right?
Yes.
Yeah, or book of samples, right?
Yeah.
I like the play between those two. To what extent do you think you're sampling? I mean, you're sampling immediate kind of pieces now, new things. But to what extent are these pieces also a book of samples of slightly older pieces of yours? I'm thinking back beyond, like pre-pandemic, pre-2023, pre-Bold Electrons 2021. What samples are we hearing from further back? I mean, you speak about the accordion, and I sense there's a longer history there.
No, I never wrote for accordion. I never really liked accordion. Oops. Sorry about that. It's something like certain registers in organs that I have trouble with. I love organs, but there's something about it. So I searched out sound colors that appealed to me, like that and other things. Not really. I'm not aware of it. One, I suppose, develops penchants for certain kind of rhythmic things. I've always loved rhythmic elements. Not aware of that, no. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
I mean, yes.
Yeah, maybe. No, yeah, exactly. I'm not. It's something one could think about, certainly. I guess there's some kind of a development in every composer's work. Yeah. And I thought later, yeah, I mean, I made this, sort of plan that sounds, like very methodical about the acoustic piece and the kinetic collage, acoustic piece, kinetic collage. And then you think, how much did I really, express the pages of 20 samples, 100 pages like that in this sample book. That's, of course, one example thereof. So maybe it's just like this thing, that my favorite things, I don't know, I always find it, one makes a concept, one hopes to realize that in some way, audibly and visually, and then intuition takes over and reacting to what you like. Yeah?
I'm going to follow up here on that. How old are these images that we see here?
Oh, sorry, these?
Yeah, how long have you been collecting?
Oh, just through the years. Yeah. Not.
This is a slightly older sample book.
Yeah, but they're just like I made a piece 2 years ago based on the plasma lamps of Tesla. You see one there on the bottom row. Yeah, those little. They became kind of, somebody in MIT actually developed the lamp form of the Tesla globe, and I adore it. And I read this study of this scientist at MIT who described the voltage variations which make the tendrils go to the edge of the glass ball and back, and what you're seeing is like 1,000 times a second. Yeah, and so but he slowed it down with some incredibly high resolution cameras, And there were like 7 steps which he described, and so I made a piece for an ensemble of 8 instruments called Modello 62 in the Netherlands, which was, the form was really expressing in some way the 7 steps of the creation of the tendrils as we see them, the tendrils. And at the very end, you know, if you touch the outside of a Tesla ball, the sparks go to the spot. Yeah, I forget what it's called scientifically. Yeah, so you see, you don't get shocked, but you can't leave your finger on too long. And then at the very, very end of the piece, everybody puts down their instruments, and they all have one Tesla ball next to them. Lights go out, and they walk through space, and they all go on. So that was fun. Yeah.
Christina, thank you so much once again.
Pleasure.
And I do hope we can welcome you back in a year's time from now.
Hopefully.
Thank you.